Hello everyone, this is Cristiana Caria, spiritual teacher, spiritual coach, head of the International Initiation School, and I'm here to do a video about the new moon in Taurus that we're going to have on the 19th of May 2023. I haven't done videos in English language for quite a while because of a lot of things that happened. For those who haven't had the possibility to follow me in Italian, I have explained since the beginning of the year, I did explain that we are really facing 2023. It's really a very intensive year because we are asked to really change our life. This is something that is going to happen whether we want it or not. The way we thought about our life at the beginning of the year is not going to be the way we are going to see and manifest our life at the end of 2023. So 2023 is a 5, which means change, is bringing a total U-turn, anything we do, because of this energy coming from the universe, asking us really to rise in consciousness, to uplift the way we think about ourselves, the way we think about our life, and the way we live it. So it's going to be pretty intense, and May, according to the majority of the astrologers of the world, is going to be a very intense month where most of the change is going to happen, especially the second part of May, which is actually the part where we're going to have this new moon in Taurus. We've just come out of a sequence of 2 eclipses, solar new and moon eclipse, and then we know that every time we have an eclipse, we're going to live it, to experience a total rebooting of the energy which was somehow stuck in ourselves. So this new moon is the first moon after this eclipses sequence, which is going to bring intensive time of change and intensive energy. And as I described in the title, I mentioned that the keynote of this new moon is going to be choice, but the choice is really about the fact that we keep living in the old world, in the old way of being, in the way we thought we were, and the new way. A new way that doesn't mean that by simply changing job or changing partner or changing house, we really change our life. What we need really to do is to shift our belief system, the way we choose to live, and not based on the survival issues, but instead choosing to live according to what we feel in our heart, we feel in our being, in our intuition, in order to really to manifest something, a new self. The more we stay in the old way of thinking, the more we make our choices based on our survival, on the old way of thinking, the more we keep creating situation where we really feel stuck or feel not supported by the universal life, because life is really asking us to change completely the way the foundation of our choices, the way we make our choices. So the new moon is going to happen on the 19th of May, and 19th from the numerological point of view, as probably many of you know, I'm also an esoteric numerology. I'm a teacher in esoteric numerology. So for those of you who would be interested in learning more about me, about the International Initiation School, those of you who have never had the possibility to get to know us, please, and also for those who know me already but they want to know more, please go on our website, internationalinitiationschool.com. The page will appear in Italian, but you have the possibility to choose the English language, and so to see our calendar and see all the structure of the school and what we offer. So one of the subject, one of the disciplines that we do offer in our school is esoteric numerology, which practically talks about looks at numbers not from the point of view of looking at what happens on the surface of life, but it's really interested in focusing on the energy that moves, that works behind the scenes. So in order to understand the movement of consciousness that happens behind, we look at the moon, at the day of the moon, as a quality of energy, in order to understand the quality of energy of consciousness that is really moving, and the aim of that energy in relation to our lives. So the moon happens on the 19th, and the 19th is composed of two numbers, 1 and 9. And 1 is the leadership, 9 is the wisdom, but also 9 could be the idea of I know everything about myself. So we are really invited to leave behind, 5 in numerology is change in the number of the month, to leave behind the idea that we know how to deal with things, or we have known until now how to deal with things, with situation, and follow a completely new direction, which is the direction of our soul, because in numerology 9 is the number of the soul. So 19 is a 10, and 10 is really about leaving behind the dependencies, that all the fears, not trusting our inner voice, who we truly are, to be able, 10 is a 1, to stand alone and then feel that we need really to trust our own inner guidance, because that is really connected to something bigger than us. And 2003, as I mentioned before, 23 is a 5, but 2003 is a 7. So is a year where we are asked really to fuse with a higher level of ourselves, because 7 is the number of the synthesis, of the fusion, is the number of the magician. So we need to work throughout the year to really get out of the way, in the sense of don't focus on the rational mind, but really focus on the inner voice that is really guiding us and inviting us to move towards the unknown, an unknown field that appears to be maybe a bit scary, but that holds within itself a lot of potential that we haven't been able to explore yet, but that is there, and we can access it within ourselves. The total addition of the day of the new moon is 31, 13, 4. So 31 is called the flag barrier, but also is talking about death. In the Tao Te Ching, the book written by 𝐊𝐸𝐽, 31 mentioned really, the 31st section mentioned the fact that we need to not fight but really use weapons as little as possible, and we really need to have the courage, because the flag bearer is the one who stands in front of an army, to stand there and trust really our inner voice. The 1 behind the 3 is really the higher will, the guidance. And the 13 is talking about a transformation. 13 is called the butterfly in numerology. The transformation from a caterpillar to a butterfly, which means from crawling on the ground to flying. So a completely different point of view of living, in order to give birth to a new paradigm. Number 4 is a new paradigm. We are in Taurus. Taurus is, from the esoteric point of view, we teach esoteric astrology. So again, we look at what happens behind the scene in order to work on that energy, so that we can really change by working on what's happening behind the scene, on what appears upon the scene, is the sign of the major life incentive. So is a sign that helps us to really work out the plan. So is inviting us to go through a total rebirth process, because Taurus is an earth sign, earth fixed sign, and generically speaking is the symbol of, is the sign, the zodiac sign associated to desire. What kind of desire we have? We may have a desire, will of power, aspiration, ambition, we want to be strong, we want to have money, we want to have holding on to things, because the sentence, the affirmation associated to Taurus is the I have. What I have, based on what I have value. So if I manage to have a lot of material things, earth sign, I will have a value. And also is the sign that, according to the traditional astrology is related to how we earn our living. Desire is really a tricky thing, you know, because Taurus is also the sign associated to the Buddha. We know that the Buddha, according to the ancient tradition, the Buddha was born at the time of the full moon when the sun was in Taurus, which means when the moon was in Scorpio, in reality, was born and died at the time of the full moon when the sun was in Taurus. So Taurus is really a sign related to the Buddha, and also we know that during this month we celebrate, at the time of the full moon, we celebrate also the Vesak, which is really an ancient celebration, but also an esoteric celebration. So working with Taurus, being born in the sign of Taurus, means that we really have to work through our desire, to understand that our desire is maybe tricky if it's not a higher aspiration that really leads us in the direction of a spiritual direction. Why do I say that? Because officially in traditional astrology, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. Taurus has other two rulers, esoteric ruler, and in this case is the same, because one is esoteric and one is hierarchical. So in this case is the same planet. And it's Vulcan. Vulcan is an esoteric planet, is actually Hephaestus. He was actually in the ancient mythology the husband of Venus. And Hephaestus is really working with metal, molding metals to make swords, to make weapons. So symbolically, is using these weapons to cut any codependency we may have. So Venus is the goddess of love, is the goddess related to the law of attraction, and Taurus is related to the law of attraction. But Venus is a tricky goddess, because also Venus has two aspects. We have the pandemic Venus. Pandemic Venus is the daughter of two gods. It's the Venus that is really attracted to material things. But also there is the Uranian Venus, which is the goddess of Urine, born from the waters, from the sea, and we know the Botticelli's painting, very famous in the world, which is really showing the birth of Venus in the sense of the Uranian Venus. And the two Venuses are completely different, because the Uranian Venus is really the one who pursues, follows, is aiming to achieve the spiritual direction, because is the daughter of Uranus, who is the god of the sky, the god of the voices in astrology is associated to the voice of God or the mind of God. So Venus is going to attract in our life things that might be tricky for us, and Venus at this time is in Cancer, is transiting in Cancer, 12 degrees at the time of the moon, 12 degrees Cancer. So it's really attracting every kind of material things that may trigger our mind and then desire. Vulcan, that is in Taurus, 29 degrees Taurus, is really aiming to cut any kind of bondage, any kind of desire that we may have, because the purpose is to refocus ourselves on a true value, supporting us to reorient completely our mind. So at the time of this new moon, we are going to have the sun and the moon. New moon means the sun and the moon are the same degree. At 28 degrees Taurus. So 28 is, in numerology, esoteric numerology, is the one who dares wins. So, and the one who dares wins means that you need to find the courage to go beyond what you know. And conjunct the sun and the moon, we have Sedna and we have Vulcan, that are two planets that are really supporting, asking us to leave the old behind and really develop an objectivity and independence of mind, because we need to go through a process of deconditioning. The Sabian symbol of the sun and the moon is really two cobblers sitting at the table, and then the two cobblers symbolically are change your perspective of the world. The sun of the moon are conjunct the fixed star Algol, and we know that the fixed star Algol, it doesn't have really a very positive meaning, because it's really associated to decapitation. But it doesn't mean really that we're going to be decapitated. It means that something is going to happen in the next 6 months, because every moon works, either full moon or new moon works through for the next 6 months. Leaders in the world, or things in our life, are going to really be removed, or are going to be decapitated, in a sense, left behind. Because Algol is also a star that is associated to Medusa, and so Medusa is really the one that was transforming people in stone. Everyone was looking into her eyes. So it's a god, it's a figure, ancient figure, that is really associated to transformation, to magic, and to the feminine. So something is really triggered in us, showing our weaknesses, but not in a negative way, to support the process of leaving that old way behind. This new moon is going to be trine to Mars. Mars is transiting in Cancer at this point in time. It will be at 29 degrees at the time of the new moon, and it will leave Cancer just a few hours after the new moon. While still in Cancer, is pushing us, moving our waters, because we know Cancer is related to our waters, moving our waters, our condition pattern, our situation. Cancer is mass consciousness. So what we believe, we always believe in. Also, Mars is what we have inherited, karmically inherited. So the old way of thinking, pushing us to get through the old way of being, and bringing, creating new foundation for who we are meant to be, who we are going to be for the future. So the big choice, because the Sabian symbol of Mars in Cancer is really choose well, the ability to choose well. The choice is really between the past and the future. Where do you want to be? Do you want to stay in the past, or do you want to stay in the future? And at the time of this lunation, Mars triggers also, and when it's going to enter in Leo just a few hours after the new moon, is going really to push through, this big aspect that is happening in the sky at the time of the lunation, which is a grand square, or grand cross. It means a big square is created between Mars, as I mentioned, and then Omea and the south node. Omea is the goddess of fertility, and she's asking us really to leave behind our pride, our intellect, and remain focused on our inner integrity. And the south node, which is really the symbol of finding inner confidence, instead of being really focused, single-minded, focus only on ourselves. And then also the big grand square is also, there is a square with Pluto that is retrograde, is at 0 degrees Aquarius. Pluto is asking us to focus on an ideal, to really what we really want in our life. And then the last part of this big grand square, made of Jupiter and the North Node. Jupiter is telling us that we have a lot of potential that is going to allow us to focus and go in the direction of our destiny. And then the North Node is asking us to bring about a new quality of being. The past and the future are meeting, but we need to leave the past behind. So a big energy moving through, and especially also Mercury that is going to become direct on the 15th of May. So the energy is going to start moving again. Until now we felt a little bit stuck. Mercury that is conjunct the North Node and also Vesta. Vesta is the inner fire, focusing on the inner fire, purifying everything within us as we focus on the inner fire. Mercury is in trine, so 120 degrees, with 𝐂𝐡𝐨𝐴. The 𝐂𝐡𝐴 is a god asking us to really find our way to bliss. So leaving behind, going through a deep inner catharsis to really, that is going to lead us through a second chance. So we really need to transform our basic emotion that may come up from this work that Mars is doing in Cancer. So a lot of emotional stuff, delusion, things that we may experience, in order to break through and enter a completely new way of being, leaving behind the old mindset. It's going to be quite an intense moon, a lot of intensity in the last 2 weeks of the month. And I hope, so if you also want to know when the moon is falling in your chart, you can really check where you have 28 degrees Taurus. Or if you want to know more and what's happening, because where the moon is falling in your chart means that it's going to be that area of your life that is going to be touched by this whole description I've just done. Where you want to know what's happening, look in which house the new moon falls. Or if you want to know more, you can always contact our school office and book a consultation, either a numerology, esoteric numerology, or esoteric astrology consultation with me, to know more what's happening in our life and know also the direction, because Taurus is finding the direction. By the end of the month, everything will be much more clear than it has been up until now. If you want to call the school office, you find the numbers in this video. Write an email to secretary@internationalsheshoschool.com or go on our website, and you have all the contact details to contact the school office. So wishing you a wonderful new moon, and please use a lot of meditation, because you need to remain centered and really listen to what is really important for you. Don't be trapped by our intellect, by your pride, by the old way of issues about survivors. Trust where your soul is really guiding, is leading you. Trust the new possibility of exploring a field that you have never known. So you need to risk, because if you want to have what you have never had, you need to do what you have never done. So wishing you a lovely new moon. Bye-bye.